Yogi Camp and the friends and disciples of Swami Vishnu-devananda remember him the week after he passed, November 1993.
We're all really blessed to have known this individual, and just may his work, his love, and his compassion continue amongst all of us. That would be my most wonderful wish for this whole group.
Darn also ask you if you could say a few words in many years still with us.
Yeah, still around.
From the accountant to the doctor to the insurance broker.
Well, when I discovered Swami Vishnu in Toronto in 1975, I was a very broken soul at that time. And what I saw immediately was an opportunity. And I realized that he had created the opportunity. And I jumped right in. I jumped in. In a very short time, as a student, within a year, I was running the center. And that's through just seeing that opportunity Swami Vishnu created. And I was very thankful. I knew that my life was saved, quite literally. But just grabbing hold of the opportunity that was there and just running with it. And knowing my mind, as we all do, know ourselves, I figured, well, maybe I could make myself stay in the organization for 2 years and carry on his work a little bit. I managed to stretch it on to 5 years, and that was full time. And then still carry on, and in that time, saw that bright light of Swami Vishnu appear from time to time. Although I must admit, I did my best to get away from him, and I took off to England. I found being around him was really difficult, as many people know. And I wanted to be somewhere a little further away, and I say that with his humor too, because I never bothered him, I never asked him questions. I just worked away again with that opportunity that he gave me, and seemed to somehow be blessed always with a relationship with him, so I didn't come across his temper too often. I can remember one occasion, I think it's kind of humorous, when we were in India in 1977, and we'd been in South India and we bought various clothes to dress ourselves in the same, everybody was dressing, and I showed up eventually in New Delhi wearing something that was very inappropriate, and he saw me, just about blew my head off, and I was wearing a shirt around the bottom part of my body, not knowing the difference. Those things, I think we've all had similar sort of thing, maybe not quite like that. And, I look back at those things humorous. The last few days, in fact, I felt very high. I'm very elated this Swamiji has left. I think it's fun. I share that with you. Thank you.
I think it's the same about Swamiji. Enormous. But these things, yes, it was yourself. Short period or long period, all the best. But when I understand, and how the becoming used to find out and always is it's at the same time, you have to be helpful to be the best of your heart.
I've been thinking, as I'm sure we all have in the last week or so, a lot about Swamiji. And talking to my students, as I teach every day, telling my students about Swamiji, little bits, some of them know him, but never even met him, but I still want to sort of have the need to tell them a little bit. And a lot of the students said, well, what are you going to do now? And that was like, several of my students asked me that, and I had to stop and think. And I realized that I'm going to do exactly what I always have been doing, and that won't change at all. What Swamiji gave me, and gave all of us, was this was this energy that we all feel, and now I'm going to feel it's my duty and all our duties just to pass that energy on to as many people as we can. I was thinking about what it really means and what was his real teaching to me. If I think for each of us had different experiences. Swamiji was like a chameleon, everybody. I talked to some people when they'd say, they described Swamiji to me, and I thought they were talking about a different person sometimes. Because for everyone had their own individual relationship with him. I was trying to think what the essence of his teaching was. And there's two little stories that Swamiji used to tell that sort of sum it up for me. So I'm going to tell these little stories. One is this, one you've all heard. I'm sure you've heard of the stories before. All of them. First one is how when Swamiji first went to the Rishikesh ashram, and he was there to sort of check Shivananda out, sort of how I always described it in my own mind. He sort of to see who this guy Shivananda was. He read this little pamphlet he found in the garbage, and said, he read 20 little statements. Oh, I have to go find out who this guy is. It's the teacher. Maybe I'm looking for this teacher. And he saw Shivananda down at the bottom of the stairs. And you ever been to Rishikesh? The ashram is built on a hill like this. So to go from anywhere to anywhere, you have to go up or down stairs. There's always climbing or going down. And he saw Shivananda with some students, and Swami Vishnu was sort of up a bit higher. He could see Shivananda was coming his way, and as Swamiji described himself as a very proud young man who wasn't, he knew that if he came to Shivananda, he'd have to bow to Shivananda. The tradition said he'd bow to the Guru, and he was very proud. He was a soldier in the army. He wasn't going to bow to anybody, so he sort of hid around the corner. And he started thinking, well, Shivananda would sort of walk by him, so he could be close, but wouldn't have to sort of do this bowing down stuff that he wasn't ready to do yet. Right? And Shivananda came up the stairs, and instead of going the normal way they would go, he sort of turned, came right up to Swamiji, and did a full prostration in front of Swamiji. And melted Swamiji's heart in that 1 second. And so the first lesson Swamiji had for all of us is the need for humility. And that all the years I've listened to Swamiji for the 15 years that I've been with him, he always said that Master did everything and he did nothing. He was just an instrument. And I think we all have to now be Swamiji's instrument. We have to have that same sense of humility. And the other story is, so Swamiji goes back and he gets out of the army as quick as he can so he can come back and go to this great guru, and this great guru is going to teach him these esoteric things, and he's going to become a great yogi and learn all these wonderful yogi things, right? And he comes to the ashram and says, I'm here now, I'm ready to learn. And Shivananda says, fine, take this laundry, go wash the laundry. Service. And service to humanity was the other thing Swamiji kept saying over and over again. So if we can just, for me anyway, if I can combine those two things, humble service to humanity, if I can just do that for the rest of my life, that's all I need to do. Thank you.
Yes, I've been to the ashram at Christmas time. And in those days, ski hill was operating, walking around down below the ski hill, while we sliding down and sliding all over the place and falling and whatnot. This is a good thing. He convinced me a couple of years later to take TTC, which I did, and that's all. And so I've been teaching occasionally since then. I guess it's been a blessing to all of us, I've had you as Swamiji give us that song, and what Krishna was saying, being an instrumental part of our lives, an instrumental part of my life. I've been very blessed living so close to Swamiji. I've seen him in the last 8 years many times going past my house, and occasionally when he was walking, when I'd stop and sit in the front, and we'd sit down and chat for a while. So this is such a great thing, to listen to such an enlightened individual say anything. It's such a beautiful thing. So we will miss one for sure. I think that I think we want to carry on the work that he started is very important. World peace, TWO, these are things that were so important to Swamiji and so important to the world. And I think it's important that we carry this message on as he's taught us. So I think very important to associate with the and be a friend of all of ours, and close to us, close to us really is spiritual home. Always working.
I was here all night, and I decided to start being affiliated to Shivananda Yoga Center. And it was a funny story. The first day I opened a year ago in September, and the first class that I taught, I wasn't affiliated yet. I hadn't decided yet to become affiliated. So my ego set in, and I decided that I was going to teach the way I wanted to teach. Well, I was going to still teach the way Swamiji taught us, but I decided that I was going to wear what I wanted to wear. I wore a purple sweatshirt and blue pants. This is what I wanted to wear. So I taught my first class. It was at 10 o'clock in the morning. By the end of the class, I realized, no, there's no way I could teach like that. I realized that you have to keep the purity to have Swamiji's energy and have Swamiji's teachings come through you to your students. You have to keep the discipline and the purity that Swamiji taught us. So by 6 o'clock class that evening, I was in my uniform, and ever since then, I've had my uniform on when I teach, and I really feel that. And like Krishna said, I've been telling my students, even though most of them never met Swamiji, I've been telling them that Swamiji's left us and everything, and they really can understand, and they understand the purity of Swamiji's teachings because they've told me, that they can feel a certain energy, and I've said it's because Swamiji has kept this yoga so pure. He hasn't turned it into yoga aerobics or aquatic yoga or whatever. There's so many different types of yoga now. He's kept the purity of Shivananda's teachings. And one thing that I really feel is I'm very sad that Swamiji's gone, but I feel that he's with us maybe even more so now than he was these last couple of years. I feel like before he left for India, he had already left in a way. And I feel his energy. I feel that he's here with us very strongly. And so in a way, it's a good thing. I'm happy for Swamiji. That's what he wanted. And I thank Swamiji very much for giving us this discipline and this purity and this path, this yoga that he taught us, and the fact that he kept, like I said, Shivananda's teaching so pure and didn't change things, and always said that it was Shivananda behind everything that he did. Well, I think all of us probably feel the same way, that it's Swamiji behind everything that we do. I know that I'm nothing. I'm not teaching yoga. I'm nothing except for Swamiji. He's the one behind it.
I was taking a yoga class with a teacher in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I didn't really know what to make of this stuff. Asanas were really nice, and after that I started wandering around looking for different yoga classes, and I was in Boston, and someone gave me a pamphlet saying, go to the Bahamas, you can take this yoga teacher training course, you'd like to do yoga. So I went down there, and Swamiji was just coming back, it was 1982, from a trip from India. And I had met some of his Guru Bhais, Swami Satchidananda, I was quite familiar with, who was around New England area where I was living at the time. And Swami Satchidananda was always so straight and tall, and he, I always wondered if he was floating an inch off the ground or something. And I met Swamiji for the first time, just rushing across the tennis court down there in the Bahamas. I said, gee, is his feet under the ground or is he walking on it? Just shuffling along and shouting and things, and I had never heard it. I thought it was all love, love, love. I heard once Swamiji said it in Mass. He said people were standing around to chant before the evening meal, and they started singing love, love, love. Swamiji popped out of the bush and says, "What's this love, love, love stuff? Sing Hari Rama." So, what I really tied up with Swamiji, I really needed discipline in my life. And Swamiji, I felt that he felt a lot of North Americans were lacking discipline. And, we had a very set schedule, very set things to do, and if you got out of line, it put us back in line very quickly. So I was always afraid of being scolded, because Swamiji could scold quite a bit. And luckily I was on staff for a number of years and learned a lot for Swamiji, but because of the scolding and a little bit of fear of Swamiji, I was never sure if Swamiji was really my guru. I said,
trying to think, it's been so long. The first time I saw Swamiji, I believe it was in 1969 in NASA. The center hadn't been open very long. And since then, all these years, I just seem to, I have my own family, 5 children, and I've been with them, but I always keep coming back and coming back. And I just couldn't, when I heard about it, I just couldn't stay away from it. But I don't really, I was never close to go and talk to Swamiji, but he'd look at me and he'd say, "Bonjour, madame." And that was, he knew, I think he knew that I kept popping up through the years, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I knew Swamiji since about 1970. On and off, I never lived in the ashram, but I visited here quite often in the beginning and somewhat less often lately. Swamiji stood out as a unique personality, as we can see from the various episodes we are hearing. He was for sure a great yogi, that nobody can deny. But not just a Hatha yogi. Hatha also means somebody who is stubborn. So he was, to some degree, there was that Hatha side of the yogi in him. But I meant in the pure sense of the word Hatha yogi. But also he was a great karma yogi, as he displayed throughout his life that he was driven by his mission. His drive was so strong that nothing could stand in the way. Not the politics of the world, not the visas and passports. And he would go anywhere to prove his mission and carry out his mission. That he proved throughout his life. And even his sickness could not stop him from the mission that he was carrying out. So he exemplified what he believed in. And I think through these examples, a man of his character can never depart. He will leave a permanent mark on all of us forever, and will live with us through these messages and displays of his own life purpose. In addition to these things, he was also a great humorist, and he would find strange humor in things sometimes. When I met him first time, I came with Maestro Ravi Shankar and Maestro Allah Rakha here, who introduced me as their student, and so I was introduced to him as a musician. And the next time when I came here, Swamiji started calling me master. I was certainly not comfortable about that. So he said, Maestro Verma, or Maestro, or something, And I was a kid in front of him, so I said, Swamiji, please no. So he said, no, you're a musician and therefore you're a maestro. I said, no. So to dilute this approach, I said, don't forget I'm an engineer first. He said, what kind of engineer? He didn't know that. So I said, to make it even more humble, I said, soils, you know, the dirt. Ah, how lucky you are. Your heart is in the sky in music and your feet are in the ground in soil. He was a great man and he'll always be with us. I've always been very fortunate to be a part of this family. Thank you.
Well, I haven't had too many occasions to be with Swamiji, certainly not as many as other people here, but the ones that I have, times I have spent with him have been most significant. People talk about Swamiji providing opportunities, and particularly opportunities when you most need them, and that was my very first experience with him. That at a time of deep distress for me, he was there, and even though he didn't know me, he helped me through that. And I guess the second time was when he gave me the greatest gift that anybody can give, and that is he initiated me, gave me a mantra initiation, and through his grace opened up the mantra to me, and it's quite a powerful experience. And now I have the rest of my life to try and attune my energies to his and realize that on my own.
What could I say about Swamiji? Big loss for all of us physically, technically still lost all. He was no doubt one of the greatest sages in modern age. He spent all his life teaching in many ways, in different ways. He taught every one of us in his own way. We definitely miss his physical aspect around us. Like, we miss him coming to the camp, he keep everybody busy all times. Whenever he came up here, going to the office or coming to the temple here, and even though he wasn't talking, but he kept us busy all the time. Everybody knows I spent some time with him. One story I'd like to tell: when we went up to the Himalayas with him, we were in a cave, and I spent most of the nights with him up. And every night, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, he used to ask me, Shamu, want some coffee? Or whatever. Every night he wants some coffee, so we have to go start the fire, like there's no stove over there or anything. And one night I said, I'm gonna make some coffee, prepare some coffee for him, and put it in a thermos, I kept it on the side. So when the time came, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he looked at me and said, Shamu, want some tea? When we went up to delivering the mantras, the Om Namo Narayana mantras to the Vishnu peak, like I had to stay up the whole night, and then in the morning we went up with everybody else. Like Spark was there, and it's a big climb. It's a lot of time. It took us 6 hours going up or 3 hours going down. So I was really tired spending the whole night, and I had to stay up the next night with him. And when he saw me, he said, "Why are you tired?" I said, "No, okay, make some coffee for me." He'd always keep us busy, but I knew like it's not making the coffee for him that he wanted to teach me. He wanted to taught me a lot of things. He didn't have to talk, even though he talked too much during satsang. Sometimes he needs to talk, but a lot of times he didn't have to talk to be teaching. And God bless us all. He's always with us. He's going to be always with us.
Oh, Krishna.
I can remember when I started yoga in Vancouver in '76 at the center there, and they mentioned that Swami Vishnu was going to come to give a lecture. And at that time I had the image of the Guru being the peaceful, quiet, just emanating light type of person. And he came, he gave the lecture, and the impression stayed with me because he gave his usual inspirational talk. But then the director there asked if I would drive him back to the house that they were staying at. And I said, oh, that'd be great. I can, rub elbows with him a bit. So we got into the car, and first thing was he asked the director, how's business? How much money did we get from this? And how's the center running? And we got into a whole different frame of mind, which it threw me back a bit because I wasn't expecting it. And then he yelled at the director for some reason, which even threw me back further. And I just blew it away at that point. I said, well, maybe he's just in a bad mood or something. So then, eventually I joined staff and spent more time with him. And he seemed to keep that attitude always. He'd always fire off at people and get upset. And I couldn't understand it. And in my mind, I kept having this image of how a guru should be, and I was trying to always project it on him. And it seemed like he wouldn't catch it. I expected him to suddenly change, which obviously was possible. But I approached him at one point as he was doing his rounds. I said, Swamiji, I approached him because I was hoping he'd give me some saintly advice. So I approached him and said, Swamiji, I have these bad feelings about you, and I don't know what to do about them. And I was waiting for this maybe 10-minute lecture on how I should do this and purify that. And he just quickly said, oh, yep, purify your mind. And off he went. And he left me there with this statement, which at that point I didn't comprehend what it was, what I should do. How should I purify the mind? Pranayama, asanas, there's so many ways. So I let it go, and he kept on through the years, and I stayed staff, and then I left. And he's always doing this service, creating things, doing things for the ashram, doing things for other centers. And obviously, he was setting an example. He was trying to show me that to purify my mind, I had to do more selfless service. He was setting the example, and eventually it dawned on me that this was the way to go and the route to follow. And I'm just happy that Swamiji did all that through his life, did all the service, did everything that he did. He achieved all his goals. And finally, in the end, what really makes me happy is that when he went, finally I see what I wanted to see from him, that he was a true saintly person who was calm, settled within his mind, and that just filled me with joy. I'm just happy he's gone, and he achieved his life, and he fulfilled my wish for him. And it's just great. That happened.
You like kind of like, are you hiding somewhere? Kind of like, because it was always kind of like, almost like an embarrassing situation. You got, everybody was kind of nervous, wondering when Swamiji was gonna kind of nail you with something else. And what I, as I was listening to other people talk, I was saying like, well, everybody's got their little story. What I really appreciated in my case, as most of you know, I'm kind of like a come and go kind of guy. So what was really great with Swamiji is that when that day came for me to go, and I didn't want to, but I would end up being like in front of Swamiji, and he would look at me right in the eye and say, "Hey, Shivaram, you running away? You running away?" And I would try and give him some kind of explanation for why I had to go. And he would kind of like, there was no problem. Go, the door's open, go. If you want to go, go. And, it made it easier to go. But what was really wonderful about Swamiji is when I came back, I would come back and, like sometimes a few months later, sometimes 6 months later, sometimes a year later. And, you know, like I remember one incident when I came back and saw him, he was walking around the ashram here, and I came up, you know, I came in with somebody, I don't know, probably coming up from the States or something, and we pulled into the parking lot, and I got out of the car, and Swamiji was coming down from, just coming down the path here with Swami Kartikeya. And he sees me coming up the parking, and, oh, Shivaram, you know, and he just grabs me in his arms, and he gives me a huge hug, you know, it was like welcome back, you know, like, so you're back, okay, you know, go to the kitchen, you know, like, that was it. That was, you know, that's one thing I'll always remember about Swamiji, how, you know, how he let you go, and how he was always like, you know, waiting for you to come back, and, you know, had his arms open and gave you a big hug, and that was it. Just, you know, keep going, and that was great. That's what I'll always remember about him. And I was thinking also, you know, how people, one other thing too is like this past week when I found out that Swamiji passed away, and there's, you know, I mean, I'm at a point in my life where people are going, like, you know, I just lost my mother, and I was thinking, you know, that my mother's gone, now my spiritual father is gone, you know, so Swamiji has always really been like my spiritual father to me. And when I was telling, like, you know, you end up telling people, well, you know, Swamiji passed away, and people who don't know him, they say, oh, well, you know, how old was he, you know, and you say, well, you know, it's like, I think he was going to be 66 or something, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of people have the reaction, oh, well, he's not that old, you know, and, you know, so like, kind of like the question, you know, how come, you know, like a guru and a yogi and a swami and all this, you know, how come, you know, like, and then you know, it's a question which is always difficult to answer, and then, you know, like, one answer is that, you know, like, Swamiji really, he gave his life for us. I mean, he just put aside his own life, you know, just to keep everything going, and all his energy went into the organization, and, you know, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, like, I mean, he just, you know, like we say in French, expression, brûler la chandelle et debout, you know, I mean, it was like, he just gave everything for the organization, and it just, like, you know, really wore him away very fast. But that's the price he had to pay for all this, you know, for all that, everything that he did for us. So that was another thought that I had, you know, this week. And,
It's thinking also about the saying health is wealth. And he was a real nice. He gave everything, even health.
Where to start? Well, I came here many years ago.
One thing I remember Swamiji said to me was, life stole his best stuff, left his way out he agreed to do a wedding ceremony for us, and I was, but he was always very kind, very supportive of me, although I stole his best stuff. And I always remember the day I was leaving after my teacher's training, I always seemed to run into him, even I had to avoided him, I avoided Swamiji, but I always run into him. The last time I was here, someone pushed his wheelchair over my foot, and I, where did Swamiji come from? I wasn't ready for this. And he came and he put his hands in my head, and he said all these prayers, and I just, you know, it's just been very special. That's something I wish.
precious gift to you in this life.
Can't hear you.
I know. So, I say I feel like the most precious gift that I've received in this life is meeting Swamiji, because whenever I was with him, I always being possessed and I was feeling like that. And he was always said, he never said a lot to me, but when he said something, it made such an impact on my heart that I've carried it with me and taught me so many times. And sometimes, I remember one time, I came up to the stage and he just said, go to India. I had no idea the trip was a month away, and I said yes. And I don't think I did. But he said it so clearly, and it seemed so impossible. And I went back, and suddenly I had 3 jobs, and I was working as hard as I could for that. And someone met me for the part of the trip that I did, and I went there, and I was there for 3 weeks. And I came back, and I had the best 2 weeks later. If I hadn't gone to India, which one understood, gave me such strength to go through that. He's given me the gift to be able to teach you this gift for me. I never thought that I was teaching this
Srinivasa just asking now to say a few words about Swamiji. It's very difficult for me because the last time that I saw Swamiji was a few weeks ago here in Harmony, just before we left to India. And I could never identify with his physical limitation. Actually, I saw Swamiji all the time as a radiant being. I always felt that he's healthier than me. And this is how I saw him till the last moment. He was just a beaming, radiant being, full with energy, life, humor. And he was more active than all of us together. And he had more energy than all of us put together. I mean, he would go on and on and on and on, and we'd be exhausted, and he would continue to go. So my memory of him is that radiant, healthy being, which is contradictory to his physical state. The second thing is, since this is my last memory of Swamiji, it's very strange, but even now, I don't think that Swamiji died. For me, he's alive. See? So I cannot talk about Swamiji, how Swamiji was. I can talk only how Swamiji is. So this is how I see Swamiji. Swamiji, I don't feel he's just, like he passed away and he's spirited. This is not how I feel. What I feel is that Swamiji is alive. This is my feeling. And during the 18 years that I was with Swamiji, I had many, many experiences with him. Actually, quite few of them you could call small miracles. I can tell you some of them. I'll tell you the first miracle, how I met Swamiji. He's appointed. Was in my army uniform. And I just walked away. After walking away for 20 minutes in a busy street with hundreds of people, someone tapped me on my shoulders in the middle of the street. And I look on the guy, and I ask him, are you looking for the yogi? I said, I am one soldier among hundreds of people. How does this guy knows that I'm looking for the yogi? I must look strange. He said, yes, I'm looking for the yogi. But I didn't ask him, how do you know that I'm looking for the yogi? So anyway, he told me they changed the place to come to that lecture. So I came to that place, there were many people, and all I knew about Swamiji was from the complete with that book of yoga. And then it felt like a commotion. Something is moving, like a little hurricane approaching the room. Even before we enter, you felt that energy, and basically like a walking volcano, something like this. Then I saw him, and he looked completely different from what I saw in the book. He was short, he was bulky, and I was shocked. And then he sat on the table, and I was shocked even more. And then he closed his eyes, and for half an hour he started to repeat all these South Indian mantras. I was not used to it. And then he started to talk. He gave a lecture, and I didn't like his lecture. I was very bored. But the funny thing was, I was shocked by his appearance. I was bored by his lecture. The funny thing was that I liked him. I liked the person. I felt that there is truth there. And then I decided, okay, I have to test it. So everyone was waiting in a row, and you could go one by one asking questions. And then came my turn. And he answered my question basically in such a way that it took me by surprise. And at that moment, the way he answered, I knew this is a master, this is not a regular being. So I really came with a bad intention, just to do it. But the way he answered, and then I felt this is a man of truth. And then some old ladies told me, oh, they have a very nice center, the mall center, but I really liked it. So from that moment I never left. And there was one more story about Swamiji. Swamiji always told us that you don't have to worry because God and Master provides. This was a time when I was in that center, and we were very poor. I mean, you cannot even imagine how poor we were. I mean, we had nothing. That particular day, I took a walk with Swami Padma. He was at the center. We took a walk. Then we came back, and we opened the refrigerator, and there was nothing. It was empty. And we talked among us, it was so nasty to have some orange. We had no money, nothing. And we said, okay, let's go and sleep. You are hungry, nothing to eat, you go to sleep. But we really felt to eat some oranges. But we remember Swamiji said, God provides, Master provides. And suddenly we hear a knock on the door. I'll never forget this. Someone knocks. We go and open the door. There's nobody out there, but in front of the door there is a big bag with oranges. No person. It's big. Swami Padma remembered this instance. We can check it. It's true. So we had a nice few oranges and we went to sleep. Many instances like this. But one thing that everyone that walked with Swamiji knows is that Swamiji didn't teach so much through words, but with his actions. And we could never figure what he wants from you. He did things with you, and then you would figure years after what he really wanted. So just to conclude, what I can say is that from my point of view, Swamiji kept his promises to me. That's it.
My name is Vasudeva, and I came here from Vancouver to Columbia quite a few years ago, and I was looking for direction in my life, and at that time there was a secretary, his name was Ambika, and she was living in Vancouver, and her mother and father were friends with my parents, and they had brought over a brochure, and they were talking to my parents about how disappointed they were with their daughter because she was working for this little Indian man and she wasn't getting paid for it. And I thought, how wonderful. she left the brochure on our kitchen table, and the next day when I got home, I had a look at this brochure and I thought, this looks great. And it was a color brochure. I think it was maybe the first color brochure. And so my sister was going to McGill at that time. So I told my parents I was going to go and visit my sister. And I had no intention of doing much to visit my sister. I just wanted to check this place out. But I knew if I told my parents I was going to a yoga camp, they would probably tie me up or something. So I came to visit my sister, and she took me to McGill, and I went for a little tour, and it was like a day sitting center. So I made reservations at the yoga center on St. Lawrence Boulevard to come up here, and paid for 2 weeks. And I came up for 2 weeks, and I was here for a day, and I saw a young fellow working underneath one of the buildings, fixing something, and I asked if I could give him a hand. And he said, sure, if you want to. And I thought, gosh, I really like working where people are working together. And so I asked the director at that time if I could be staff, and she said, oh no, nobody can be staff here unless they talk to Swamiji. But Swamiji's not going to be here for 6 months, so you can stay here. You can stay here till they come back. So I thought that would be great. So I stayed on as staff, and I stayed a year at that time. And Swamiji gave me mantra initiation right when he came back. And he said, say it whenever you want to make spiritual progress. Well, I always want to make spiritual progress, so I've always said it. And I just, Swamiji has done so much. He's been a father to me. Swami Shankarananda and I we sort of came in at the same time. He was in Israel, and I was here. And we ended up merging in Belmarin. We both ran registration, and we used to call Swamiji Dad, and we used to call Swami Shivananda our grandfather, and he really has been a dad to me. And all the old staff, I've always kept in touch. I'm about the only old staff that really hasn't got roots, and I felt that it was really my obligation to come here and represent the old staff, because Swamiji's given us so much. There were times when I'd see the spending that Swamiji was doing, and I'd say, why are we doing that? And building project, building this dome, and building the covering the airplane, and I'd think, this is so stupid, we could be spending the money on something else. And what he was doing was giving us a terrific opportunity to learn to use new tools and we just all got skills. I mean, there's architects, there's engineers, there's, I can do anything now. And it's a great part because of Swamiji. I had never traveled in my life till I left to come here. And I've never stopped. And I always wanted to travel, and I'm a double Sag, and I love traveling. There's times when I would be, every time when the sun comes up now, I think about Swamiji, because when I used to drive Swamiji, I'd be driving along and the sun would rise, and what Swamiji does, he's sitting in the passenger seat, and the sun comes up and he just does a namaskar to the sun, and it's so devotional. There's just so many things about Swamiji that I could tell you. I saw a duck. I saw a duck in Vancouver that had just given her chicks, hatched her chicks, and she pushed them out of the nest once they had their downy feathers dried, and she stayed with the rest of the chicks, and the ones that were out never got back in the nest. And Swamiji has thrown people out of the ashram, and they've not come back. And what he's done is he's made them independent and made them find a life for themselves, so that they weren't leaning on him and only having a life with him. So the old staff. I was just in New York. I came from Santa Fe to New York, and I stopped in New York, and I was one of the old staff who was thrown out was my host there, and she told me a story when she used to go to, the first time she went to India with Swamiji, she got sick, and Swamiji made arrangements for her to be taken care of by two other old sannyasis in Rishikesh. They put her in the same room. And the older lady said, "Is Swamiji your guru?" And she said, "Well," she really didn't know. And the older lady said, "What was your feeling when Swamiji came into your life?" And she said, "Did it make a big difference?" The old lady said, "Did it make a big difference?" And this old staff said, "It really made a big difference in my life." And then she said, "Then Swamiji's your guru." And just so beautiful a man. I could tell stories and stories and stories. I love Swamiji. He's such a beautiful man. Something that I remember is that if people waited until they were perfect to start to teach other people, we would never have any of these people, whether it's any of these spiritual teachers, they would not be in our lives because they're not perfect. You know? I've gotten so much from Swamiji, and I know that all of you have. So I'm so glad he didn't wait till he was perfect, because I never would have had his darshan or had the privilege to rub shoulders with him. With the TWO, I really believe that we're here to make the world a better place, and I think he's created the most fertile ground for us to practice making our own family a unity. You know, even the people that have been thrown out of the organization, it's so important to embrace them with our hearts and to love them and treat them the way we would like to be treated, because the shoe could have been so easily on the other foot, where we could have been the ones that were thrown out, or we could have been the ones to be given the cold shoulder or something. So if we can have a true unity in our own family, and the TWO will just spread from there. Thank you.
Jaya Jaya Rati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Rati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimurtiya Mara Jaya Jaya Rati Adijaya Adijaya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Rati Sanishwaraya Sanishwaraya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Rati Shankaracharya Shankaracharya Advaita Gurave Jaya Jaya Rati Sadgurunatha Sadgurunatha Shivananda Jaya Jaya Rati Vishnu-devananda 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 Jaya Jaya Rati Agastya-munane Agastya-munane Shri Rama Priyane Jaya Jaya Rati Ayyappa-swamiye Ayyappa-swamiye Dharmadasa-swamiye Jaya Jaya Rati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Putra Gurave Jaya Jaya Rati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave Samasta Gurubhyo Namah Jaya Jaya Rati Venugopal Om Nagadratu Guryo Bhadi Nagadratarakam Deva Vidyo Bhamti Kuto Yamagni Tameva Bam Tamanuvadi Sarovam Tasya Bhasa Sarvamidam Vibhadi Om Gange Yamune Deva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Namastubhyam Namo Namaha Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sasakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Tvameva 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 Sarvena Vacha Manasendriyava Buddhatmanava Prakrite Svabhava Parasmai Narayanai समर्पयामि सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वकार्येभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि केशव ॐ नमो नारायणाय रसोऽहं तव 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 केशव शान्ति शान्ति
Continuing our puja, we are going to chant the 1,000 names of the Lord Vishnu for the Vishnu Sahasranam. All the names are belongs to Him. Not only thousands, but all the names. All the names belong to millions of names. Everything belongs to Him because Vishnu is the cause of the universe. Whatever we see in this universe is generally effect. The plant, the flowers, trees, and water, moon, stars, everything is His glory. So we find good brothers and evil brothers, that 101, usually that is right. Naturally you can see the evils are more in numbers. So there are 101 and good brothers are only 5. So there was a war between Pandavas and Kauravas. After the Mahabharata war, the grandson Bhishma Pitamaha, his name, he was lying in the arrow bed, and Krishna and one of the eldest of the 5 brothers approached him. And there, Vishnu Pitamaha gave this all the 1,000 names to Yudhishthira, told him the glories of Lord Krishna. He said, who is in front of me now is not only your friend, but your cousin. He is the Jagat Prabhu. He is one of the cause of the whole universe. So, God Krishna, he gave that Janan there to Yudhishthira. So, this is an Indian tradition. Usually when a person, you can chant any time. Usually at the deathbed, you chant the Vishnu Sahasranam. Also, whenever we conduct the pujas, at the end of the pujas, we do the 1,000 names. And this everywhere, the people when they walk in the olden days, when they walk, when they speak, when they even not speak, they chant Vishnu Sahasranam. So here, all the 1,000 names, it indicates His glories. Om Vishnave Namaha. You are the Vishnu, one who is the form of Vishnu. And to you my prostration. Vasudevaya Namaha. One who is the son of Vasudeva. Son of Vasudeva is Vasudeva. And to you my prostration. So Vasudeva.
Benedict Ramaya Namaha. You who took the incarnation of Rama, who took the incarnation of Sri Rama or Parashurama. To you my prostration. Savaya, Purushottamaya, Sarvasmai, Sarvaya, Shivaya, Sthanave, Om Bhudataye, Vidhaye Avyaya, Sambhavaya, Bhavanaya, Sartre, Prabhavaya, Prabhave, Ishwaraya, Swayambhuve, Sambhave, Adityaya, Pushkarachaya, Mahaswanaya, Anadnithanaya, Dhatre, Om Vidatre, Om Daduruttamaya, Om Aprameyaya, Om Rishikeshaya, Om Padmanabhaya, Om Amaraprabhave, Om Vishwakarmane, Om Manave, Om Vakte, Om Avishtaya, Om Aviradhruvaya, Agrahyaya, Ashwadaya, Om Krishnaya, Lohidakshaya, Pradadhanaya, Prabhudaya, Trikaguddhamne, Pavitraya, Mangalaya, Parasmaye, Ishanaya, Pranadaya, Pranaya, Jeshthaya, Jeshthaya, Prajapadaye, Om Hiranyagarbhaya, Om Bhugarbhaya, Om Madhavaya, Om Madhusudanaya, Om Ishwaraya, Om Vikramine, Om Dhanvine, Om Medhavine, Om Vikramaya, Om Kramaya, Om Anuttamaya, Om Duradarshaya, Om Kritajnaya, Om Kridaye, Om Atmavade, Om Sureshaya, Om Saranaya, Om Sarmane, Om Ishwaredase, Om Prajabhavaya, Om Anne, Om Sambasaraya, Om Vyalaya, Om Pratyayaya, Om Sarvadarshanaya, Om Ajaya, Om Sarveshwaraya, Om Siddhaya, Om Siddhaye, Om Avyangaya, Om Vedangaya, Om Vedavide, Om Kavaye, Om Lokabhyakshaya, Om Surabhyakshaya, Om Dharmadhyakshaya, Om Kritagridaya, Om Saduratmane, Om Chaturvyuhaya, Om Chaturdamshtraya, Om Chaturbhujaya, Om Rajishnave, Om Bhojanaya, Om Bhoktre, Om Sagishnave, Om Jagadadijaya, Om Anaghaya, Om Vijayaya, Om Jetre, Om Vishwayonaye, Om Punarvasave, Om Upendraya, Om Vamanaya, Om Pramsave, Om Amoghaya, Om Sutaye, Om Murtidaya, Om Adindriyaya, Om Sangrahaya, Om Sargaya, Om Datmane, Om Yamaya, Om Yamaya,
Jayarati Vishnu-devananda, 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 Jayarati Agastya Mune, Agastya Mune, Sri Rama Priyane, Devottas Gurave, Buddha Gurave, Jai Jayarati Mohammed Gurave, Guru Nanak Gurave, Samasta Guruvyo Namaha, Jai Jayarati Venugopala. Om Jaya Gange Maya, Maya Jaya Gange Mata, Jo Naratunga Janga, Jo Panchita Palavata. Om Jaya Gange Maya, Maya Jaya Gange Mata, Chandrasi Jyoti Tumhari, Jaya Balata, Maya Jaya Balata, Sharanapade Jyoteri, Sharanapade Jyoteri, Sonarata Jata. Om Jaya Gange Maya, Maya Jaya Gange Mata, Udra Sagar Kare, Samajaka दाता कृपा दृष्टि तुम्हारी कृपा दृष्टि तुम्हारी त्रिभुवन सुखदाता ओम जय गंगे माया मय जय गंगे माता एक बाजो शरणागता मय शरणागता यमगीता सहिताका यमगीता सहिताका परम गति पाता ओम जय गंगे माया मय जय गंगे माता आरती माता तुम्हारी जो कोई नर गाता मैं जो कोई नर गाता दास वही सहजामि भक्त वही सहजामि मुक्ति को पाता ओम जय गंगे माया माया जय गंगे माता ओम नमः भक्ति चमत्कार गंगे मावि जो भक्ति वदोयामि नमः तमवादी सर्वं तस्सवससवमिदं विभाति ओम गंगे जयमुने च गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिन्धु कावेरी नमस्तुभ्यं नमो नमः माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वा मम देव देव कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रिया वा पूज्यात्मना स्वभावात् करोमि यत् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वभूयो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः